cognitive views of motivation. So people will respond to external events or physical conditions, and people also respond to their perceptions of these external events and are motivated by them. So Robert White's competence motives include what? Intrinsic sources of motivation. Our need to understand, our need to be competent, and our expectations of successful or failure. We are motivated by what these expectations. Now, attribution theories of motivation, Weiner. Okay, so here to make attributions about causes to describe how an individual's explanations, justifications, and excuses influence motivation. So let's take a look at Weiner. Okay. Now here, Weiner classifies causes to which students attribute their successes or failures along 3 different dimensions. All right. So there are internal versus external. Then we have stable versus unstable, controllable versus uncontrollable. So let us go back to the first one here. Okay. Hold on. External, internal, external. Now, so here, these are closely what we are looking at as dependent variables. We are looking at what feeling of confidence, what self-esteem, pride, guilt, and shame. All that here, you will see all this here. Right? All right, now, cause and outcome. Okay, let's take a look at some of the causes. Okay? Internal. The cause is internal, for example, because it's due to what? Ability, or high IQ, low IQ, or people with internal locus of control. So that's internal versus what? External. External can be what? Say luck, a good weather, and also people with external locus of control. Okay, so that means they attribute external locus of control means they attribute anything they could do to an external source or external sources. Here, people with internal locus of control, they think that their success or their failure is due to their own internal environment. All right. Okay, let's take a look. If the person attributes success to internal causes, okay, then the person will feel pride, self-esteem, and feelings of confidence, and that all these will serve to increase motivation. On the other hand, if the person attributes failure to an internal cause or internal causes, then that person will feel shame. Then the ultimate result will be to decrease motivation. All right, good. All right, here, if the person attributes his or her success, the success is due to external factors, good luck, good weather, whatever, okay, then the person will feel gratitude. And there is no change in motivation because external factors are not under the individual's control. All right. Then, if the person, the individual, attribute failure to external causes, and the resulting feeling will be anger. And then there is no indication that means motivation remains unchanged, right? So that's attribution due to attribution to internal or external causes. And stable versus unstable. So here is closely related, like the dependent variable. We are looking at expectation about similar tasks in the future. All right, let's take a look at the stable costs or the causes. Right? Stable. The cost is stable. For example, ability. Ability is considered to be quite stable, is that right? And difficulty of the test. Right? So that difficulty is stable. Okay, the test. Right? Unstable. For example, luck. Luck is unstable. Is that right? We all know that, right? Sometimes someday we have good luck, sometimes not good luck, right? Mood. Our mood. Most people have unstable mood, is that right? In a party, good mood. Out of a party, doomsday ahead. All right. Now, if the individual attribute the outcome to success, the stable causes, then that person will expect success the next time. So that will increase motivation. Why? Because is stable. Oh, I could do that. Okay, I'm capable. On the other hand, if the individual attributes failure to stable factors, then this individual would expect failure the next time. Is that right? Because the factors are, oh my goodness, I have low ability, low IQ, that type of thing. So that serves to decrease motivation. Okay, when a similar task in the future appears. Okay, unstable. If the success is due to attribute success to unstable factors like mood or good luck, those are not stable and will and likely to be changed the next time, and they will likely change the next time. So the individual even if it is successful, not sure about what will happen the next time. Similarly here, if it is failure, but and because of due to unstable factors, so they are not sure about a similar task in the future. Okay, all right, let's take a look at the next one. Okay, let's take a look at this here first. Controllable versus uncontrollable. Okay, so the dependent variable here is that future expectations about similar task. Future expectations about similar task. So it's related to both confidence and future expectations about similar task. Okay. All right, let's take a look at controllable costs. a very good example is effort and working hard, that type of thing. Okay, uncontrollable will be what? Ability. Your ability remains stable. It is not controllable for what? For a certain period of time, isn't it? The difficulty of the test. So this is something you cannot control. All right. All right. Take a look at those outcomes. If success is due to controllable factor, effort, and the feeling is pride and expect success, that one, this scenario increases motivation. Okay? So for similar tasks in the future, if I work hard, I put in a lot of effort, I'm going to expect what? Success. Good. All right. If the individual attribute failure to controllable factor, then expect success if individual focuses on positive adaptive responses. For example, putting in what? A lot of effort, working hard. Okay. Now, but then the individual expects failure if what? If he or she focuses on and adopts negative responses, okay, like giving up. Okay, nah, I'm not going to do it now. It's too difficult to work hard. Okay, so this here, this will decrease what? Decrease motivation. Of course, this will increase motivation, just like this one here. All right. Attribute success to uncontrollable factors. That is what? Gratitude. If it is due to what? Say, ability, that will increase motivation. Okay. Uncontrollable factor, ability. I am able. So then was successful. So therefore, what? Gratitude and what? Then what? Expect to be successful the next time. If it is what? Due to the difficulty, or it is an easy what? Test, a very easy test, then very unsure of what future outcome. Is that right? So it is what? Unsure of future outcome. Right? So and the motivation remains what? Unchanged. Is that right? Here, attribute failure to something what? Uncontrollable. You cannot control it, therefore anger. So what? No expectation about the next time, all right? So unsure. All right, so what? These are the three attributional, three aspects of attributional theory. Now, take a look here. The greatest problem of motivation, it is what? It is called what? It's due to what? Learned helplessness. Okay? That is what? Learned helplessness is what? Caused by attributing failure to what? To internal stable and uncontrollable causes like ability. Okay. Now, these students respond to failure by focusing even more on their own inadequacy, and therefore less likely to seek help because they believe that the causes are their own internal, are unlikely to change, stable, and are beyond their control because it's uncontrollable. All right. So this one is called learned helplessness. Okay, this is a sure way to lead to failure. All right. Okay, so much for Weiner's theory. Let's move on. Let's take a look at this one here. Self-esteem and attributions for successes and failures. Okay, so that's the summary of what we have just discussed. So, person high in self-esteem, successes attributed to internal causes, their own skill, their high ability. Failures attributed to external causes, bad luck. Okay, so bad luck. All right, so I can do it, but just bad luck. Okay, look at here. Person low in self-esteem. Here they attribute successes to internal cause to external causes. Okay, good luck. All right, and what kind of self-esteem, or what if luck changes the next time, right? Well, here the person failures attributed to internal causes, their own lack of skill or ability. So these two serve to lower a person's self-esteem. They tend to raise the person's self-esteem. Okay, the last one, Maslow. Maslow's famous hierarchy of needs. Maslow's theory, a motivational theory here, has been adopted by a lot of Fortune 500 companies at this point. Okay, at this point. So let's study it. Okay. Now, motivation is based on satisfaction of needs, striving for personal growth, maintaining personal freedom, and self-determination. Is that right? So we all want freedom, security, justice, love, money, of course, status, recognition, and prestige. Right? These are what human beings want. So let's take a look at Maslow's need hierarchy. Maslow has suggested that there is a definite order. So definite order here, okay? Definite order in which individual attempts to satisfy their needs. So lower level, these are the yellow, lower level deficiency needs, also called the basic needs, okay, must be met before higher level, the blue one, before higher level growth needs, or also called being needs, okay, will be pursued. So here we have different textbooks will have different names, okay? Then we have basic need, the deficiency need, and right? So it depends on which book you are reading. Okay, these are like basic need, being needs. Okay, well, that's only my personal biases. All right. Now, satisfaction of basic needs or deficiency needs decreases motivation for focusing on them. So once these let's say physiological needs are met, we no longer crave for this. Okay, we look forward to safety needs. Okay, and after safety needs are provided, then we no longer crave for them. We seek what is. So the direction is upward. Okay, the direction is what upward. All right. So that is what. Take a look at what that is caused by principle of homeostasis. Homeo, H-O-M, homeo, S-T-A-S, yeah. Homeostasis. All right. Okay. Now, what is what principle of homeostasis? Okay. As applied to deficiency needs, remember, it only applies to what? To the basic needs only. Okay. All right. So when we get enough of our basic needs, our drive for them ceases, stops. But when we don't have enough of one of those needs, those basic needs, our drive for them will continue. All right, so that's the principle of homeostasis. So let's say here, physiological needs. That what physiological needs have what survival values. For example, food, water, sleep, warmth, that type of thing. Okay, that type of thing. So once we get all these, then we no longer motivated to get these. We will go up to safety needs. Okay, one safety. So what is safety needs? Physical and psychological security. Okay, like stable and structured environment, freedom from fear. And we look for order, protection, shelters, family stability, that type of thing. All right, so that's safety needs. Once all these are fulfilled, we are no longer motivated to get more of them. All right, we go up. We go up. Okay, belongingness, and love needs. See here, a striving for strong interpersonal relationships with a lover, with a family, with a family group, or with what we call clan, C-L-A-N. Okay, so our group of people. So here we are looking for love and acceptance and group affiliation. Okay, all right. So last one. So once that's fulfilled, we look for esteem needs. What are these? Self-esteem. Okay, need to feel competent and in control of one's life. All right. So some examples will be like recognition, prestige, self-respect, social status. Okay? So that's a desire to be well regarded by other people. Right? So that's what these are the basic needs or deficiency needs. Okay. Now, let's say we're here. Okay, we are one. We are at the one esteem needs, looking for those needs. Okay, but all of a sudden, a famine strikes. So we will be at once back to what this level, back to this level for survival. Is that right? So that's the homeostasis, the principle of homeostasis. Is that right? So anytime one, let's say we're here, anytime this one is in jeopardy, we will be motivated to attend to this level of needs. All right, so let's take a look at all these here. Say, physical needs. What if we don't have one physical needs? Well, hunger, is that right? Hunger, thirsty, sleep deprived, we feel cold, right? All that. So the end result will be what? Likely will be what? Illnesses. Is that right? Illnesses will be the end result. Okay. Now, next level, safety needs. What if we don't have stable, structured environment? We are not free from fear. We are out of shelters, all that here. Well, that will lead to various forms of neurosis. Okay, various forms of neurosis. All right, so let's move on. Deficiency in belongingness, and deficiency in love needs, and that will result in what? Feelings of what? Rejection, loneliness, and what? So feeling of rejection and loneliness eventually will lead to what? Psychological disturbances, sometimes severe psychological disturbances. All right, now, esteem needs, a desire to be well regarded by other people. Is that right? You need what? To feel competent, to be in control of your life, and failure to acquire what esteem needs here will impart a feeling of inferiority and helplessness, which may manifest themselves in depression. So people will be depressed. All right. Okay. All right. So we have finished discussing what basic needs, or deficiency needs. Then everything in the yellow one area, everything is fulfilled, all the basic needs fulfilled. Well, then we become what? We begin to nurture our need to know and understanding. So here we want to nurture what? We want to acquire intellectual achievement, understanding, explaining, that type of thing. All right. Then once that is achieved, then we have aesthetic needs. What is it? The need for symmetry, the need for order, the need for beauty. For example, art, all right, that type of thing, music. Okay, so we begin to pay attention to that. Then, at long last, self-actualization. What is it? Well, a desire to become everything that one is capable of becoming, or to be the best we can be. It is self-actualization. Okay, of course, here, all these are not originally in Maslow's hierarchy. He discussed it, but later on, people differentiated the discussion into these three levels. All right. Now, since motivation is a good predictor of academic achievement, regardless of school factor and teaching ability, you as a teacher should be carefully monitoring your students' basic needs or deficiency needs. This is very important. So in poor provinces, when I was in Alberta, I proposed giving breakfast to those poor students coming into the class with an empty stomach. And the local people echoed this and did. Then the end result will be increase in grade point average. Okay, so that is good. All right. Now, the general strategy in school will be use extrinsic motivation to start them off. For example, reward, reinforcement, okay, that type of thing. And then use intrinsic motivation, okay, perhaps through functional autonomy to sustain the learning activities. Now remember, candy for practicing piano, okay, and if you have to offer candy so that the child will practice piano, the child practices piano for what? For the external reinforcer. All right. But then let's hope that one sunny day the child will begin to play piano for the sheer joy of playing music. Okay. Then then playing piano has acquired functional autonomy. So it is good that we try to use extrinsic motivation to help a student, then use intrinsic motivation, hopefully to sustain those activities, and hopefully then functional autonomy will kick it in. All right, so that is something we look forward to. All right. Now, let's take a look at some criticisms directed at this model of motivation. Okay, the hierarchy may not be invariant. Okay, that is a good one. Is that right? For example, Gandhi, India's Gandhi, he bypassed basic needs to reach self-actualization, and he bypassed even safety needs to achieve self-actualization. It is because of this here he got because of this here he bypassed this. He got shot by an extremist. Is that right? Or by a paid assassin. All right. Now, so let's take a look here. Most of the criticisms directed at here? Self-actualization. Right? Directed at self-actualization. All right. Let's take a look. Self-actualization, to his credit, Maslow did not begin with the question of what human values should be. Okay, he didn't do that. But with observations of what healthy people do when they are permitted to choose and live their lives freely. So he observed that. Thus, he supported his ideas about self-actualization by observing super personalities, people operating at the highest levels of what? Personality functioning. He observed, and he published it in 1970. All right. So let's take a look from another perspective. However, these so-called self-actualizers, they are not professional experts on human behavior. They are simply expert human beings. All right? So even they cannot allow us to get at self-actualization directly. We cannot ask them to tell us about self-actualization as if they were expert psychologists. We can't do that. Well, as with Rogers, a further weakness is seen in Maslow's methodology approach to these superior personalities. It is based on a small, arbitrarily selected sample that was not objectively observed. Because Maslow mentioned himself that only a very small percentage of people can achieve self-actualization. All right, so only a very, very small percentage of people could achieve self-actualization. So that is one. So one limitation, that's a second limitation, is that right? The first one is that it does not seem to be invariant. Okay. The second one is that there's no such thing as like a master psychologist, a self-actualizers. They are not professional experts on human behavior. Okay, they cannot tell you how to self-actualize. Okay, so the next one, Maslow's identifications of self-actualizers were based on his personal selections, resulted from inferential reviews of a variety of materials not publicly available. And this occurred after the fact and were biased. Now, this is the main criticism, and they were biased toward the Western civilization. Okay, so his list of characteristics of self-actualized persons may simply be a list of qualities that Maslow admired. If you read Maslow, you will understand that his emphasis on mystical, non-rational experience rather than reason may reflect personal bias more than objective reality. Maslow did that. Okay? He emphasize on mystical, non-rational experience. Okay, have you heard of the flow experience? Okay, that's one of those. Okay, but it's only recently that we psychologists are convinced of the flow situation and have actually devised a method how to achieve that level of condition, flow condition. Okay, now finally, the fourth limitations more than any other criticism of Maslow's central concept. The most damning has to be the charge that his concept of self-actualization is neither universal nor the best rendition of human fulfillment. All right, so let's take a look at one of the major critics, Das. And he published a very influential paper entitled Beyond Self-Actualization. Das suggested that other notions of fulfillment exist in non-Western societies and may, in some respects, be more attractive than self-actualization. Okay, so Buddhism kind of teaches self-realization. Okay. So compared to self-actualization, self-realization is a more active process. Okay. It does not just happen after lower needs or after what basic needs are satisfied. One must work at self-realization. All right. So furthermore, this self-absorption that characterizes self-actualization is relatively de-emphasized in the case of self-realization in favor of concerns for others. All right. So here, this one is basically a Chinese cultural core value, in which the highest level is self-actualization in the service of society or in the service of others, rather than individual self-actualization. So let's take a look at some running comparison. Okay, now let's take a look at Maslow and Rogers, the two founders of humanistic psychology, and they are, of course, both of them are the brightest stars in the humanistic firmament. Okay, so both are more concerned with the here and now and being all one can be, rather than with the past or even with the future. Right? Both Carl Rogers and Maslow. Both of them, they flirted with the Freudian psychology briefly, but they were influenced much stronger by Alfred Adler, Freud's personal physician. Adler, both Carl Rogers and Maslow, they admired Adler's concept. Adler's concept called law of movement. What is that? Well, that is the direction taken by the individual that originates in his or her ability to exercise free choice in fully exploiting personal capabilities and resources. All right. So that's called the law of movement. So because of this here, Adler was suggest what his famous theory, famous suggesting of was striving from inferiority to superiority. Adler also champions what the creative power of the individual. So that means what the individual, we shouldn't just follow other people. We have the power to create. All right. Now, both Carl Rogers and Maslow, both of them emphasize the importance of self-actualization in what personal functioning and development. They do that. Right? Now, for Rogers, self-actualization was one of several central concepts. Okay? Say his free one, necessary and sufficient conditions to what in dealing with other people. It was showing empathy. Remember what congruence, unconditional positive regard, and what empathetic understanding of others. So he suggested that what if we could walk a mile wearing what other people's shoes, we'll be able to understand other people's what feeling, difficulties they encounter. All right. Okay. So the three necessary and sufficient conditions, okay, to be employed in psychotherapy, encounter group, interpersonal education, interpersonal learning. We already talked about this. Okay? For Maslow, it was what self-actualization was the single most important concept. However, for Rogers, self-actualization was within the grasp of most people. Quite unlike Maslow, who suggested that self-actualization was reserved for what a special few. Okay, all right. Now, some side information. Rogers came from a warm and very traditional family. Okay. Maslow considered himself an abused by his own mother, and neglected by his own mother, and a victim of prejudice. His mother Rose, was very prejudiced, okay? And she didn't allow Maslow to eat it that much, and didn't allow him to do this and that. And eventually, after Mother Rose died, Maslow refused to attend her funeral. So you should take a look at what kind of abuse that Maslow received at the hand of his own mother. So Rogers was totally warm and accepting, and always assumed the basic goodness of humans. On the other hand, Maslow could show the same trait, but he seethed with suppressed anger and was more than willing to acknowledge the sinister side of human nature. Right? So you see the differences between the two founders of humanistic psychology. But anyway, Maslow, this one is a good model. Okay, all these here, say fulfillment of basic needs, they have become something the United Nations are striving to do this. Try to fulfill third world countries, all these here, right? And then of course, all these are the growth needs, the being needs, they are they are what they are under what under our own what control, whether we want to do this or not. Okay, so that is what dependent on our own motivation, whether we want to achieve more and more. Okay, and remember, all these yellow here, all these basic needs, they are governed by the principle of homeostasis. Okay, all right, good. Thank you.